Alright, so we are going to learn how to heal a picture using a couple of different tools. Alright, first of all, let's just look at this picture and use some of the simple techniques that we've already learned how to use. So one thing would be just identifying this picture. It definitely has a yellowish tint to it instead of black and white. So the easiest thing to do, the first repair, would be to use our layer masks, and I would go to black and white, and automatically it changes our picture to black and white. You can see up here it's creating a mask which is totally open, and it is affecting our background layer right there. And here's our adjustments, but I'm not even going to worry about those adjustments right now. Alright, so next we are going to look at some of these things here. Like, I'm going to sort of take a general overview of the entire picture. I'm going to see that there's a background here. It looks like, maybe depending on who the client is, I could ask them, but the background doesn't seem very important, so I might be able to do something with that. This hand over here, it's really hard to see what's happening here. It looks like the man has his arm around his son, and the little boy has his arm here, but these hands are so beyond repair that it's really not going to look very good. So one thing that I can actually do before I even get into some specialty tools like the cloning stamp or the healing brush is just make sure I'm on the right layer first. Oops. Let me get this thing out of the way. Your computer's giving me a little trouble here. Is make sure I'm not selecting from the mask layer, but I'm selecting from the background. I'm going to draw a selection here with my marquee tool around the hand. I'm going to edit, copy. I'm going to edit, paste. All right, and what that does is it gives me another copy of that hand. So if I go to my moving tool and my transform controls are showing, turn off auto select. I'm going to flip this hand like so. Alright, I accept my change, and I can move this hand sort of into position here. Alright, and I can look and see where that hand goes. It goes right about here. Alright, then what I can do on layer 1 is I can create a mask. Alright, oh, sorry, I got to accept my changes again because I rotated it. I'm going to create a mask. Alright, so here's my mask. And then using my paintbrush with black, as always. Remember, I can adjust the type of paintbrush I have here, the hardness or the diameter, all that different stuff there. And I'm just going to mask out that hand a little bit. All right. Then what I'm going to do is, because the boy's arm is sort of over it, I'm just going to sort of put it here. If I want to, I can sort of shape these fingers a little bit if I want to make it a little bit different. I'm just sort of doing this quickly, so it's not the greatest job. All right, now the other thing I can do is I can take this boy's hand. So I'm going to make sure I'm on the background layer. And I'm selecting from the right layer. I'm going to use my marquee tool. I'm going to select his arm like this. Okay, I'm going to go to edit, copy again, edit, paste. Again, using my moving tool, I'm going to flip this thing over, just like that. Okay, I'm going to accept my changes. And I'm going to try to place this arm pretty close to where it belongs. Now I want the arm to be in front of the hand because his arm is overlapping. Obviously the hand's sort of floating in front there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this hand layer and I'm going to drag it below my arm layer. So suddenly it disappears, right? I'm going to go to layer 2. I'm going to add a mask to layer 2. Again, using my paintbrush with black, I'm going to go in and I'm going to paint out this part. And this one, what I'm going to do is I actually painted out his hand, because what happens is that if you're copying both hands here, maybe I'll go to undo. See how these hands, like, it looks like he's got strange little claws down here, and that to me is the most obvious. Like, this arm actually looks pretty good. Under close inspection you can see that it's the same arm, but because the position is a little different, it looks different. But these hands are the giveaway. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask out this hand. I'm going to mask out the background here. All right, and again, I'm just doing this very quickly. You're going to go in and look a little bit closer. Be a little more careful with this. All right, like so. But what I'm going to do is, instead of using his other hand, I'm going to go to the internet. All right, and what I know about image size now, remember I want to choose an image that's the appropriate size. I'm going to right-click on it. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to bring it back to Photoshop, and I'm going to paste it right here in my picture. So check that out, right? Now, it's the wrong hand, meaning it's the wrong side, but that doesn't really matter, because we know what we can do is I can flip it. over. Right? So I've got it here. I'm going to rotate it a little bit, and I'm going to try to make that hand the right spot. I'm going to set my changes. I'm going to bring it down, and I'm going to start to shrink it. And again, you know, I'm doing this super fast. You really can be careful to make sure the hands are exactly the same size, get all the hands in the right position, all that sort of stuff. But really what I'm just worrying about here is I'm just trying to get that hand kind of in the right locale there. I'm going to accept my changes. I'm going to drop that hand behind the sleeve. All right, so here you can see the boy's sleeve is sort of coming over that hand right there. I'm again going to put a what? That's right, a layer mask right here. I'm going to use my black paintbrush, and I'm going to mask out that other hand that's there. All right, don't forget I can use my zoom here. I can zoom in a little bit so I can see. Back to my black paintbrush. I'm going to adjust my brush size using the parentheses keys, and I'm going to take out some of this. All right. I'm just, I spend a lot of time here doing this, but I'm just going to sort of clean this up a little bit. This looks like it's some debris from another, or maybe this, yeah, that layer mask there. All right, and then this other hand, you know, like the original hand for the man, I might have to reposition a little bit now that I see that other hand. You know, sort of flip it around, that sort of. And again, this layer mask looks terrible. Remember, I can go back to it. I can use my white, and I can bring back. Oops, undo that. Make sure I'm on the layer mask, right? There we go. Go back and. Oh, I'm using black though, sorry. I undid, I forgot. There we go. And bring that finger back a little bit. So let me, I can use this to zoom out, or I can use my plus or minus key. So here, you can see that hand doesn't look that great because I can see all the edging on there, but I can resize it, I can make it better and all stuff. But overall, this part of the jacket is looking really pretty strong. It's looking pretty good. Then finally, if I wanted to, like for the background, this background is just, you know, I could spend a lot of time softening it if I want to. If I'm a real patient person, I can look at that. But honestly, I feel like I just want to get rid of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an image behind it. So I'm going to take my background, I'm going to double click on it, I'm going to say OK, and that actually makes this a layer. So now I can put things behind it. I'm going to go back to the internet. Again, using, you can see here the pixel size is shown up here. I'm using an appropriate pixel size. If you don't remember, under Image, Size, right here it's giving me the pixel dimensions up here, so I know that these are the approximate pixel dimensions of a piece that would be that exact size, so I can just sort of, you know, guesstimate the size that I need. I'm going to use this mountain scene, so I'm going to again right click on it. I'm going to copy the image. I'm going to go to Photoshop. I'm going to edit, paste, like so. I'm going to move this to the outside. I'm going to hold on my Shift key and I'm going to expand this image here. Okay. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to accept my changes. And remember, depending on where you put this, if you accidentally pasted this in your way at the top here, it's going to be color. We just have to make sure that it's, when we bring it down here below, it's going to be black and white. All right, but here it's disappeared because I dropped it behind the boy and his, this man and his son there. I'm going to click on layer 0. I'm going to put, yes, another layer mask on there. Bring back the old black paintbrush. Make my, flip it to black here. Make my brush a little bigger. And I'm going to paint out that other background. So check that out. All right, again, I'm just going to do this sort of quick and sloppy here, but you're going to do it much better. So I can take out that whole background. I can put a new background in there. Now, the neat thing about taking things from the internet and stuff like that too is, you know, you could, let's say his hair was totally damaged, or you wanted to put sunglasses on him, or he needed a mustache because he had a mustache now. You know, you can go into, you can go online and you can grab all sorts of pictures that you can use to sort of dress up that background. But this is looking better already. You know, if this is too dark and it looks sort of phony, again, you can always put that layer mask on top of that. I could use my levels if I wanted to. I could do brightness and contrast. You know, I can adjust all sorts of things to darken it, to lighten it. You know, maybe this is better to go a little bit lighter this way, sort of to adjust it. You know, but again, you can make all sorts of different adjustments to your levels if you want to. So if I had that one, you know, you can see it's darker, it's a little bit lighter. It helps those two sort of stand out. So, sort of figure that out. Now the last thing you can do, I'm going to zoom out a little bit here, is you can use your cropping tool. And some of this also, like this shoulder is really damaged, or there might be some other parts here that you don't need. I can also get rid of some of this. Marquee tool again, my handy marquee tool. I'm going to select what I want to keep. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to say image, and I'm going to say crop. There we go. And that just took care of everything on the outside. Now once I'm finished with all of this, I can actually go to image canvas size, which is different than image size, and you can put some white space here. You can extend your canvas with white. So this is 19.4, 19, 20, 22. So I'm going to do 23.4, 23.4, and I'm going to do 31.3. And what that does, there we go. Oh, it gave me a clear border on there because I was on my levels layer here. But it's fine. We can fill that with white later. But what this will do is it will be a nice empty space in the background. So here I could potentially just make another layer. This is your new layer button here. I'm going to drag that layer down to the bottom. I'm going to use my fill bucket. I'm going to use white. And I just fill that layer with white. So there you go. So that sort of makes a nice clean border. It really fixes up the outside edge of that picture. Now I would not do that until you are completely finished, because if you do layer masks and things like that, it's going to sort of distort everything and be sort of weird. So I would do that canvas size at the very end of that project. And then finally, the last thing you could experiment with a little bit is you'll notice that as I add things to this picture, this picture is sort of old and grainy. The hands and things that I have here are sort of brand new looking. You can select the layers, like let's select this background layer here. I'm going to go to filter, and you can add some noise to your picture. And what that does is it just adds like a grain, almost like a texture. And I'm going to say Gaussian on here, and I'm going to increase the amount just so you can see it. So see how it sort of breaks down that picture? That's obviously way too much, but I can sort of grain it a little bit like that. And then I could also go back to our good old blur, Gaussian blur, and I can add, again, way too much blur, but I can add a little bit of blur to it. So now all of a sudden see how it's like 1.6, 1.5, 1.4. Now it looks like it matches a little bit better, right? It doesn't look so like brand new. All right, so like, if we look at this kid's hand here too, I'm trying to remember which one is the hand. Is it this one? That's the guy's hand. There's the kid's hand. So again, I make sure I'm on this layer. I make sure I've selected the hand and not the layer mask. I go to filter. I say noise. I add some noise to it. All right, so you can see I sort of salt and peppered the hand a little bit. It's fine. And then I'm going to go to filter. I'm going to go to blur, and I'm going to Gaussian blur that hand a little bit. So there we go. So it softens it so it looks like it belongs a little bit more. All right, let me zoom out once. So that is the basics of just getting some of the bigger pieces together. And then if you look at part two we're going to go into using the healing brush and the cloning stamp to get rid of some of these dust and scratches and all that other stuff.